could tell that my mom was really nervous that afternoon all those years ago. It was just her and I sitting in the living room, but she jumped up and closed all the curtains. I guess on the off chance that a neighbor who could lip read would walk by and know that my mom was having the talk with her daughter. And she was clutching a brochure from the church, a guideline on how to talk to your child about sex, more than likely written by someone who had never had a child or sex. And I was anxious to get the scoop. I had my theories. But when Mom got down to it, tab A into slot B, I didn't see that coming. And in an attempt to console me, Mom assured me that it's the woman that takes the lead, and she signals readiness by wearing perfume. Probably spritzing herself from a little bottle of "No headache tonight, honey." But the one thing my mom didn't cover in that talk was anything about birth control. And so when it was time for me years later to have that talk with my daughter, I made sure that was on the agenda. And a year or two after I had that talk with my daughter, I received a phone call one afternoon from the father of a young man my daughter was dating. They were both 15. And this dad said that he was sure that our kids were having a physical relationship. And while I didn't love hearing that word, that news, the alarm, 5-bell alarm fire that was starting in my head is, what are they doing to prevent pregnancy? And I knew that my daughter wouldn't just tell me that was not how she rolled. I would have to find a way to get her out of her comfort zone. So I came up with a plan. An hour later, I picked her up from the mall and we drove in silence, but rather than going home, I kept driving out into the country, and my daughter was immediately nervous. What is happening? And I told her I could understand she probably didn't want to talk to me about birth control, but it was critical that she did, and that I would drive as long and as far as it would take until we could have that conversation. And my daughter turned pale, but she clammed up, as I knew that she would. And now we're driving past fields and barns, and eventually we come to the first town. And I remember to tell her then that I do have a full tank of gas. And it's almost as if I could hear that little golf pencil in her mind crossing out the line item, jump out at gas station, call a friend. But she remained silent. And the stress, the tension in that car was growing with each mile. Eventually, we get to the second town. And I say, oh, hey, by the way, I packed an overnight bag for us. It's in the trunk. I swear I heard a little whimper escape from her at that point. But she remained resolute. And now, with every mile and every minute, my heart was beating harder and harder. My plan was backfiring. And by the time we approached that third town, we had been on the road for almost an hour. And I decided it was time to bring the big guns out. And so though we were still several hundred miles from the border, I said, looks like we'll be sleeping in South Dakota tonight. And that was it for her. She said, I'll talk, let's talk. So I turned around in a farmer's driveway and pulled over as soon as I could. And she told me that she had wanted to talk to me for these past 2 weeks. She did want some help, but she could not find a way to start that conversation. And so together we came up with a better plan than what had been in place. Now, my daughter and I, we didn't talk about that drive for many years, but from time to time I wondered if I had done the right thing, abducting my daughter and threatening an unconstitutional deportation to South Dakota. It was a jury had assembled in my mind, and I was continually presenting the case for the defense that the stakes had been high and that time was of the essence, but the jury remained deadlocked. Until, that is, the day that my daughter told me in a casual conversation that when she's with friends and the subject of mothers comes up, she will sometimes say, "Here's something my mom did once." And I was watching her as she was talking, and while her words were neutral, the look on her face was not. And that's when I knew that the defense could finally rest. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for Annie.